I am always encouraged by people that are willing, when they learn something, to change. Too many are not. And that includes people like me. I have learned things, and if you are honestly seeking knowledge, you're honestly seeking truth, you're bound to change from time to time. It's essential that you do. Otherwise, you get stuck in old thinking, and you lose the ability to help, really, quite honestly. Dr. Tabia Lee, she was the head of a college DEI program. So you would immediately say, gee, Glenn, why are you having Dr. Tabia Lee on? Because she's somebody who went in and found that this is really harmful. This is not actually making sure all voices are heard. And she left and has been in a lawsuit with her former college. But I wanted to talk to her because, A, I respect her. B, she's also talking about anti-Semitism on the campus. Dr. Tabia Lee, welcome to the program.
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me today.
You bet. This must be weird because I bet you never thought I'd find myself hanging out one morning with Glenn Beck, but
absolutely.
Yeah, right. So, Doctor, tell me what your experience was.
Yes. You know, when I was hired at the Anza College as a faculty director, it was after many years of working in higher education as a part-timer, if you will. You know, after I got my doctorate, those job offers, you know, for the tenure track just didn't come pouring in like I thought they would. But the one silver lining of the pandemic for me was that, you know, all of these positions opened up, and, you know, colleges needed extra hands, if you will. And I was one of those folks that was hired on, and it was a job that, you know, had a job responsibility and title that, you know, everyone had kind of always said, Lee, you need to be like a director somewhere. You know, you don't need to just be in your classroom anymore. You need to share your knowledge with a wider, you know, group of colleagues and impact an institution. And this was a job that provided me with an opportunity to do that position as a faculty member. And so the things that took place almost immediately as I began to do my work let me know that I was in an environment that I had never been in before. And it was like I was in a Twilight Zone almost. It was immediate within 2 weeks after, you know, starting my work.
So when you took the lead role on DEI, what did you think it was?
Yeah, so this was a position to lead an institution-wide transformation around 3 topics, which was my office role: equity, social justice, and multicultural education. And when I interviewed for it, it was a lengthy process. And you know, I was very forthright with them about who I was, and they kind of revealed to me some of their pain points. And one of the things they said was, the panel said was, you know, the office you'll be working for, they're a little too woke. And, you know, that's why we're looking for someone to come in and bring a balance. And I said, well, can you tell me what you mean by woke? Because people use words all the time, and they have different meanings for them. And so I'm always someone who's looking to get at the heart of what is someone actually talking about. And they said that, well, when faculty goes to your office, you know, if you're selected as a candidate, they feel uncomfortable. They're accused of being racist. They're told that they're teaching wrong. And so a lot of faculty doesn't engage. And I said, well, based on that definition that you're telling me, you know, I'm definitely not woke. You know, what I seek to do is I seek to bring people together from diverse and divergent perspectives, and, you know, and to identify points of commonality. Even if we seem really different, I think we can always find a way to serve our students. And so that was, you know, my statement. And from that, I advanced to the next stage, and I did even a teaching demonstration for them on calling people in instead of calling out. And so everything was focused on that, you know, point that they raised about the negativity coming from the office. And I was selected for that position. And I was delighted to be selected because this was, again, things I focus on, an opportunity to bring people together in dialogue and make a positive change in the community.
How long did it take you before you were called the wrong kind of black person, or quoting a dirty Zionist?
Oh, yes. So that was within 2 weeks. As I started off, Glenn, I'm someone who I don't assume I know anything or that I have a solution going in. I want to see what people on the ground are saying.
Yep.
So I did over 60 hours of needs assessment conversations with faculty, administrators, staff. And during this, one of my first ones was with one of my staff members. And they told me that, this job, they were a final candidate. This job should have been theirs. And they said, they don't know who I am or what my commitment to equity is and, why I've come in and swooped this out from under them. But they assured me that I would have a rough road ahead of me. And from that was the same person who, a couple of weeks after that initial meeting with them, while I was meeting with my team, we had already had some kind of informal meetings, and it just seemed like they were a very casual group. And remember, I needed to do some strategic planning to do an institution-wide transformation. And so I wanted to bring some structure. And so I said, great, it's been great meeting with everybody, past couple of weeks and so forth. Just tell me a little bit about how you all take notes. How do you, track what you've done in the past, what you're doing in the future? And they said, we just kind of meet and we talk once a week. And I said, well, I've made this Google Doc and all of us can edit it. And, you can put in ideas for agendas. And since I'm so new, maybe you can tell me some of your projects that you're working on and I can see where I can fit in. And the same person who told me my job should have been theirs, they said, stop what you're doing right now. And I was like kind of taken aback. I was like, okay. I said, what? And I said, okay, I'm listening. And he said, what you're doing right now is you're white speaking, you're white splaining, and you're supporting white supremacy. And we don't do that here. And I said,
wow.
Excuse me?
And you're African American, right? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
And I've worked in education my whole life, Glenn. No teacher I've never been in a meeting where someone called another person a white speaking, white splaining, and said white, and called them a white supremacist. And I'm from the Central Valley here in California. I grew up there, a small town called Lodi. And there, when we hear white supremacists, it's actual like KKK members, white National Socialists is what that refers to. And so I was deeply offended, and everyone on the call, had these smug looks on their faces. And I said, I haven't come in here calling anyone names. I said, this is, I feel very uncomfortable with what you said. And I just explained to them what I explained to you, where I'm from and how I've heard that used. And everyone on the call had these looks of condemnation as though I was offending the person who said those offensive words to me.
Know this story.
And this is, yes. And I took it back to my dean, afterwards. And I said, hey, this happened, and her affect was flat. She had no response. And I said, I'm real uncomfortable. Normally, I'd be the person who would do some kind of team building or, a communications exercise. But I said, but I'm the target. I said, I need you to bring someone in to talk to this team about, in-group bias and how do you let a new person in and how do you talk to each other with, in a civil way. And then, and I need this to be repaired. I said, because we can't communicate this way. This is not normal to me. It's very abnormal. She never brought anyone in. And I asked her if she would come, and then she ended up being one of the main instigators as well. So that was the environment that started off with my supervising dean and my team, me being called a white supremacist and I didn't know what they meant until many weeks later. I started going to their workshops and I kept seeing this slide pop up and it said white supremacy culture characteristics. And one time it had a citation on it. And so I was able to find the white paper where it came from. But it had things, Glenn, like being on time, being objective, setting an agenda. Yep. Yeah, and these are like personality characteristics. And I said, what is that? But at our California community colleges, that's being held up as a framework for people to work from, and they call it that they're dismantling white supremacy. And the way that they're doing it is by not elevating those characteristics and, I guess, castigating anyone who demonstrates them. And to me, all the characteristics were things I had always taught my students to do to be successful in life. They're
Exactly
not white
right.
supremacy.
Exactly right.
These are just,
Yes.
so that's how it started. That's how it started. And from there, at every turn, it was becoming clear that I was working from a different understanding of social justice,
Right.
from them. And I had to really figure that out while I was in it, which was an interesting thing because, again, all my institutions I had worked at before, they use a classical definition. Hindsight's 2020. But here they were using a critical definition, and
Correct.
it was this focus on, claiming that America is a nation founded by white supremacy. That's one of their core things that they put. Even the academic senate made a resolution stating that. And I pushed back on that. That made me an enemy again. I said, no, America's founded, to me and to others here, and they're too afraid to speak because the environment you all have created. I said it's founded on fairness and equality. Whether we've lived up to it or not is something we can all debate. But I disagree. I said, putting that in there, and they said, no, we're rejecting that. It's founded on white supremacy. That's final. And they put that in a resolution that the faculty signed.
She is a senior fellow now at Do No Harm Medicine, and she was at some universities or some, what would you call it, just college, or is it a technical college? I'm sorry, Tabia.
So this was a community college, California Community College.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you were experiencing, as the DEI director, you're experiencing, they don't define things the same. Then you started noticing, because you were talking to students, what's happening, and several Jewish students came and said, "I feel unsafe here." And what happened?
Actually, this was during my needs assessment conversation. So this was conversations with faculty, staff, and administrators. Multiple times it was mentioned that there was a problem with anti-Semitism on the campus. And they gave me several examples, like the academic calendar starting for decades on Jewish high holy holidays. Stories were shared with me about things that happened before I came. Our student government basically subverted a effort of the Jewish Student Union to bring forth a definition of anti-Semitism, the IRA definition. Instead, the student government ended up making a counter proposal, and then they made no definition of anti-Semitism, but they condemned Israel. And so that was very disappointing to the students. I also heard about the students being uncomfortable because of anti-Semitic flyering. This is all before I got there, and people were sharing these stories with me and telling me the environment of fear and exclusion that have been created for Jewish students. And I was on, as part of my director responsibilities, a group called the Equity Action Council. And what I discovered there, Glenn, they weren't focused on equity. To me, equity means fairness, the textbook definition. They were talking about something completely different. And then they weren't focused on action either. So it was a big time waster on the taxpayer dollar. And this group gets funding too. And our local Hillel director came to the Equity Action Council, and they shared information about, the uncomfortable environment for students. And they urged us, please, to act. And they offered to assist. And they gave us some recommendations in written form because they said they had come and talked to several people, before, and nothing ever happens. And they were hoping, to see some changes. When we took these recommendations back to our team meeting, I said, wow, I'm offended by the way that one of the staff members, as these guests were talking, they were dropping resources into the chat box, like, here's a link to Students for Justice for Palestine. This is a good resource to learn about anti-Semitism. Here's a link to Jewish Voices for Peace, and so forth. They were giving resources that were antithetical to what the people were speaking about. And I said, I found that disrespectful. And they said, well, it wasn't disrespectful. You and your guests, they called it, were sharing resources. So we shared ours.
Oh, my gosh.